All right, this is part 3 of chapter 14, Campbell's Biology, dominance and recessiveness. So dominant alleles, one thing that's a common misconception is that dominant alleles are physically or they push away the recessive alleles, if you like. They think of them like a bully. But in fact, it simply happens that dominant alleles are expressed so much more often that they dominate the field in that there's more of them and there's very few recessive alleles. So there may still be a few recessive proteins, but they're so minimal that they don't have any kind of effect. So most genes exist in 2 allelic forms. There are some organisms that have more than 2 allelic forms, but in general we're talking 2 allelic forms. There are some that are more, as we mentioned. So here we have ABO blood groups. This is determined by multiple alleles. So you can have the A antigen, the B antigen, or the lack thereof, which would be O. It's not a different antigen, but it's a different allele, so to speak, because it codes for no protein. So here you see A antigens, B antigens. You can be AB. This is codominance, where they're both shared on the surface of the red blood cell, and here you see none. Now, pleiotropy is when one gene has multiple phenotypic effects, and this is more common than you think, especially in humans. Each gene doesn't serve just one purpose. Its protein doesn't just serve one purpose. It serves many purposes depending on the location in the cell and what type of cell is expressing it. So here you see gene A codes for both or causes both trait 1, trait 2, and trait 3. Now, some traits are polygenic, meaning there are many different genes that contribute to that one trait, that one phenotype. So here you see, for example, a nice cartoon showing a polygenic trait where this individual is coded for by all these different genes, so to speak. At least that's how I framed it to create the man of today. But in general, this is called a polygenic trait. It can be height in humans or eye color, all these things. Epistasis is when one gene at one location on a chromosome, its protein blocks the expression of a gene at a second locus. So here's an example using brown, black, and white mice. So C is a gene that codes for color, and B is a gene that codes for black when dominant and brown when recessive. So this mouse, when the color gene is dominant, it allows the expression of the black or brown gene, and thus this mouse is black. You'll notice here when you're dominant for the color gene and you are recessive for the black or brown, then you are brown. But here you're going to notice that when you are homozygous recessive for the color gene, you don't produce that protein. It masks the expression of this black gene, and thus this does not get expressed even though it codes for black. So these mice are albino. This is called epistasis. So as we talked about just a second ago, polygenic traits, a lot of human characteristics are, they vary along a continuum. Basically because they are polygenic traits, this includes skin color, height. It's not as simple as that found in peas. And you can see that here with skin color where there's multiple genes. Here they're showing you 6 alleles total, 3 genes that code for skin color, and the more dominance you carry or have, the darker your skin color. There's actually more than just these 3 genes for skin color. You're talking somewhere between 20 and 30, I think. Sometimes the nature, as you know, has an environmental impact on the phenotype. There's a new study within the last 10 years called epigenetics that looks into how the environment affects non-genes and their DNA that is not within your genes and how it affects gene expression specifically. But the environment has a great effect on your genotype, or I should say your phenotype. So you may have the same genes, such as these 2 flowers, and even though you carry the same gene for the same color, the pH of the soil in this case for these hydrangea are altering the color. We call these things that have both genetic and environmental factors multifactorial characters, and a lot of things in humans are multifactorial characters. So an organism's phenotype, as you know, is both how its genotype or what its genotype codes for and its environmental exposure to various things. can affect the gene expression, both in your lifetime and in the lifetime of your children, shows some of the research, which we'll talk about later with epigenetics. Even in these complex scenarios, segregation and independent assortment still applies. And we'll take a pause on this slide.